Hi guys, welcome to another renovation video. What we have here today, it's a 200-year-old listed building in North London. The building consists of two parts. On the left hand side we have this tower, which goes back 200 years. And on the right hand side we have the yellow brick part, which has been built 50 years later, so around the 1870s. The focus today is on the tower, which is the coldest part of the building, having two large external walls, and we are installing thermal insulation, or during the past few days we have been installing the thermal insulation in this part. And yeah, let's go inside and find out what's going on. Before starting the application of the lime aerogel plaster, just like in case of any lime plasters, the surface must be moistened or must be sprayed to make it wet. This is very important because if the surface is not wet, then the plaster which is being applied is going to dry too quickly and there's a chance of failure here. Here we have an existing lime plaster on the wall, so we just quickly wet the surface, and I would say thoroughly, and then this will prepare the surface ready for the application of the aerogel plaster. Here we have the aerogel lime plaster. It's a white powder. The weight of the bags is 9 to 10 kilos. Quite fluffy, light plaster, very warm. The content of the bag is being dumped into the water and mixed with water. The mix starts to form, starts taking shape, and the plaster must be mixed at the right consistency. By subsequently adding more water or more powder. Once the plaster is mixed correctly, it starts resembling fresh dough, bread dough. It's almost there, it's almost right, but it's still a bit too soft and too fluent, so we add a bit more powder to the mix. Almost there. A bit more mixing, and we are almost done. Testing for the consistency, and it's done. Here's the rule of thumb for the right consistency. We scoop out a lot of material, flip the trowel, and as you can see it sticks to the trowel, probably about an inch, inch and a half sticks to the trowel, which means that you can, at this consistency, you can apply about an inch, inch and a half without running down the walls. Most of the time we apply only about 10 millimeters in one go, but technically more could be applied. Here's an example of the application. We have the material and we just spread it on the wall, and it's really easy to work. Just floats nicely and easily. Sticks. It's similar to a glue, but it's actually a lime plaster. Put a lot on the tray and just spread it. Don't overspread it. Keep the consistency, in this case probably about 5, 6, 7 millimeters in one go, and without dragging too much or overworking it, just apply it and leave it there. With the right consistency of the material, the application is effortless. It's just applied and glides onto the surface, giving you a relatively straight, uniform and flat surface with good coverage. If the plaster starts being dragged on the wall and difficult to apply, it means that the consistency is probably too hard. The plaster has hardened. Finalize the application before the plaster sets and it starts dragging the material, and the material starts sticking to the trowel. Here's a quick view of the plaster. On the left hand side we see the thermal plaster or a normal lime plaster, and on the right hand side the slightly creamy color of the Aerogel lime super insulating plaster. To make straight edges around window or door frames, commonly window beads are used. They are cut to the right size and then they are just adjusted in a right angle in the right position around the window or door frame. Window reveals are particularly difficult areas to insulate because of the limited space we have. There's not too much space to put a lot of insulation, and as a result the thermal bridging can be significant along these areas. What we have here, we have this brown Roman waterproofing plaster which acts as a base coat, stopping liquid water and salts. And because of the limited space here we cannot apply the thicker thermal plaster, so in this case we can apply the aerogel plaster straight onto this surface under the window bead. This will create a significant insulation, increase the U value significantly because of the extremely good thermal properties of this aerogel plaster. It can also easily work into these areas, being a very flexible plaster, much more easier than foam or solid board insulations. As we can see here, the aerogel plaster is applied along on top of the window bead, and at a later point is also going to be applied on top of the brown plaster, insulating the whole window reveal area. Once the plaster has been applied, a fiberglass mesh is going to be sank or pushed into the surface, into the wet material. These meshes come in 1 on 1 meter wide rolls. You cut it to the right length, position it where it needs to go, and then just push it into the surface with these long movements and work it until it becomes virtually invisible or barely visible on the surface. If needed, the mesh can be cut and aligned to the wall in order to make it fit for purpose. The mesh will decrease the surface cracks in the finishing plaster. Generally, it's worked into the surface until it becomes barely visible. Maybe the texture is going to be visible on the surface, but other than that, not very much. And this way we leave the aerogel plaster to dry, to set. Once the plaster has hardened, we can apply the finishing plaster. And finally, in closing, here's a quick overview of the room with the thermal insulation finished. The aerogel plaster being applied throughout the whole room, the mesh being worked into the surface and just waiting to dry before the final skim coat or finish can be applied. Hope you found it interesting, and thank you for watching.